I'm only starting with 3 images. I told you to download at least 10. But if you're still struggling, at least make sure that you have a background image to get started with, and start thinking about images that you're going to bring in. Like I said, 75% of this collage can be from stock images, but 25% needs to be from you. So either scanning objects in, taking pictures, digital illustration, any of those things count, okay? So let's start by right-clicking on my background image, and I'm going to open with Photoshop. Okay, and I need to make sure that this is 22 inches by 28 inches. That's how big I need to print it, because it's going to be an 18 by 24 print to go around the stretcher bar. So I have to go to the crop menu, and I want to make sure it's on width time height by resolution. Make sure that you type in 28IN or 22IN. You can switch between, it doesn't matter which orientation, landscape or portrait. And 28 inches by 22 inches. Make sure you don't, it might default to PX if you don't put the IN, 300 DPI. And you can move this around wherever you want to, but I want it as big as possible. Perfect. And then you can hit the check mark or hit the return button. All right, Command 0 lets you fit the whole thing on there, okay? The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to File, Place Embedded, one of my other objects. So I'm going to select the rose and I'm going to hit Place, okay? And then I don't really care about size. You can resize it later. Doesn't really matter. And then when you have it the right size that you want, you're going to hit Return, okay? Now, I want to mask that out of the rows. So what I'm going to do is there's a brand new selection tool called the Object Selection Tool. It does a pretty good job, but I'm glad that we went over the other ones, because you're still going to have to use your own judgment when making selections. If you click and drag over an object, it will try to detect the edges, okay? After I do that, I want to select that object, and then I want to mask it. So remember that a mask, it kind of makes like a window, and whatever is black doesn't show, and anything that white does show. So I'm going to hit Select and Mask, and I want to show you at the very top that you can view the mask in different ways. Like maybe I want to look at the selection mode, onion skin, what it looks like on black, what it looks like on white, just the mask itself, on the layer itself. So you might want to like check, between those. I like working on the red, okay? All right, so then you can even smooth the selection. You can feather it, which makes it wispy, especially great for clouds. You can change the contrast between it. But if I look really close, I can see, oh no, this is red, and I don't want it to be red. So there's a couple tools over here. Maybe I want to add this to the selection, so I'm going to click and drag that. I want that green to be selected. Perfect. Okay. Oops, but you know what I think I did is I accidentally deselected everything, so that's not cool. So I'm going to hit Command Z. Okay, and I'm going to refine the edge, which is the second one right here. So if I click and drag, it looks silly, but do you see how it's getting rid of that like beigey color? And I'm telling it what the edge is by brushing over it. So I don't want that. I don't want that. Perfect. And so I just need to go around the whole edge. You see how it has like that beige around it? Okay, let's pretend that I did the whole thing. All right, and then what do you want to output it to? I want to output it to a layer mask. So it keeps that layer, but it makes that new mask. So I'm going to hit Layer Mask and hit OK. And then notice that I made this little window next to the layer, and anything that's black doesn't show, and anything that's white does. Okay. If I zoom in, do you see how really nice that selection is that I refined the edge? Don't worry, you can go back in. I can double click. It's thinking. And go back in and refine the edge a little bit more. So I would just need to click and drag and refine that a little bit more. Okay, and I'm gonna hit OK. Okay, and now I'm back in here again. I also wanted to point out that You could still use your paintbrush. So you could still use your eye. Remember, if you paint it black, then it disappears. If you paint it white, it reappears. Okay, so you can go back and forth between those, so you can actually just select and deselect just with the paintbrush. So that was how we had to do it back in the day. It's a lot easier, but I'm just letting you know that that's different ways that you can play around with the edge. And then if you actually use gray, gray is transparent, so you can make, you know, an edge transparent. So that's all about selection and masking. Okay, what if I do not like the size of this object? So this is how we move it. I'm gonna go to Edit, Transform, Transform Scale, and then I can change the size of it, and I can rotate it, edit, rotate it, that kind of thing. Okay, and again, what if I want to change the color of it? So maybe I want to go to the black and white cookie with the adjustment layers and hit hue saturation and change the color. Oops. So it's changing the color of everything underneath. You actually have to hold down the Alt Option key and then select until you see that little arrow and say, oh, I want that hue and saturation layer to only affect that thing below it. So now it's changing the color of just the rows, not you know, the background image. Okay, so now that's linked. All right, what else? Oh, you can bring up the saturation, how much of it you want to be. It looks so cool. Okay, and you can also create maybe an effect. So I want it to be an outer glow, so it looks like a sun. I'm gonna change the spread of that, the size of the. I'm gonna do. I don't know. Whatever I want to do. That outer glow. Okay, let's say okay. So I have an outer glow. Oh, you know where I put it? I didn't put it on the rows. I put it on the hue saturation layer. There we go. Now you see it. Like, I don't see it very well, but my eyes were failing me. Ooh, that spread's gross. Maybe a lighter yellow. Oh, I like that. Let's try a different lighten. Oh, I kind of like, I don't know, that's too much now. Anyways, I could play with this forever, but there we go. So now I have this rose coming out of the sky. Okay, so now we get this idea of how we can file, place images, select and mask it. Okay, very important here. I want to file, save as, and I want to save it on my computer. I'm going to save it in my Canvas folder. So this is where I name it first name, last name, underscore, Canvas project, and then today's date. And make sure that it's a Photoshop file because you're going to open it up later. Anytime that you see a little asterisk here, if you make a move, that means you haven't saved recently. So Command S saves, and then you'll get rid of that asterisk. And then that means that inside my folder, I now have that PSD that I can open again and continue to manipulate. Do not save it as a JPEG or else it's going to flatten all these things. So that's how you get started. Now continue adding all your other things.